About 10 years ago, I was working as a manager in the naval shipyard in Esquimalt, and we had tasked one of our shops to go up onto the bridge area on one of the ships and remove some redundant steel mounts that were up there. They set up an oxyacetylene outfit up there with a torch. They had the lines secured properly along the side of the ship, and the bottles were down on the jetty. They had a monitor in place, a fire sentry that would be looking out for sparks or any problems like that. Unfortunately, the weather that day was quite foul and raining very hard and windy, and so the workers, to protect the equipment, wheeled the set of oxyacetylene tanks on a little cart, and they put them underneath the brow stand beside the ship. And the brow stand is the ladder where you go up onto an intermediate platform and then up the gangway onto the main deck. As they were welding, some of the sparks inadvertently blew down onto the gangway. They splattered, there was some molten metal, and fell on top of the acetylene bottle. And as luck would have it, the valve failed. I inadvertently turned around, looked out the window a couple minutes later, and there was a large orange flame about 15 inches blowing out the top of the acetylene. I immediately called 911, the fire department. As I left the building, I had one of the managers call the ship and talk to the ship staff. They broadcast the area out of bounds so nobody would go through there. And as I ran out of the building, I was calling for the place to be evacuated, and everybody left the area as requested. One of our workers had been unloading some steel off of a pallet down there, and he had large, heavy leather gloves on. And as he came under the gangway there, he went right past these tanks. And he looked at me, kind of raised an eyebrow, and then he reached in with his hand and he physically turned this valve off. I don't know if it was the right or wrong thing to do, but at that point in time, he had stopped the fuel at source, and we averted a major disaster. Could have been an explosion right down on the jetty. A subsequent investigation by the fire department and our shop safety department revealed that, in fact, the valve had failed. There was a problem with the casting, there was porosity, there was holes in it, and we had tested the valve prior to that, tested the bottle, everything was in place, but we had never experienced that type of a problem before. As a result of their investigation, what happened was that we directed the shops to write a standard operating procedure, SOPs they're called, and it stopped any source of fuel from being placed in close proximity to the gangway. That included things like the oxyacetylene tanks, kerosene, diesel, propane, anything that would be down in there that could be explosive. We also included the other shops that would be working in that area as we looked into the SOP. And in fact, the electrical shops with transformers, welding machines, they carry high voltage, 220, 440 volts. We had those lines tied off on a separate little passageway over onto the ship to protect that escape route off the ship for the workers and for the ship's staff. So the message here, when you're looking at working in one of these areas, the potential hazards are everywhere. Don't compromise your safety or somebody else's safety by putting clutter in place. Don't leave lines strewn on the deck. Tie everything up, keep it out of the way. And in the unfortunate event that something does happen, you'll have a clear passageway off that ship. And again, our intent is to send you home healthy at the end of each and every workday. Do your part and it'll happen.